murdered due to abuse. That there are 3.3 reported incidences of abuse that affect 6 million children. And that there is a report of abuse every 10 seconds. Good evening, and welcome to Voices Healing the Hurt. I'm Alice Agostini, and I'm your hostess today. I am a clinical therapist here, and my specialty is abuse. And I have a special guest today, a very courageous young lady who's going to talk about some of the abuse that she went through as a child. I'd like to introduce Teresa.
Hello.
Hi, Teresa. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you were able to come, and I thank you so much coming here to share your story. I know it's very difficult for you, but I'll try to make it as easy as I possibly can for you and not make you too uncomfortable.
Okay.
Voices is about abuse, and it's abuse of all kinds. And so we are going to talk about abuse today, and today is specifically about child abuse. Now, I wanted to do this show about child abuse because of the story that came out in October about Justin Kowalczyk, who was a 17-month-old baby found in the backyard of a Long Island home. I was so moved by the story, and to hear that neighbors didn't even know that child existed at all. And I knew in the work that I do that it's not a unique story. There are stories like this all over the United States all of the time. And so when I wanted to do this show, I had decided child abuse should be the first show. So I'm going to ask Teresa a few questions, and if you want to call at any time, the number here is 669-7999. Once again, 669-7999. You have any questions at all, you need information, I have numbers to resources of people you can call if you need help. Or you could ask myself questions or Teresa some questions. Teresa, you know, in child abuse, when we think of parents, there are many things that parents have to do. They have a very difficult job. It's not easy. But there are 5 basic things that need to be met, absolutely. And I want to ask you if all of these needs were met for you. So
no.
Let me get to the question. The first need is, you know, a parent needs to provide the physical needs for the child. They need to make sure they eat, that they have clothing, that there is a roof over their head. The other thing is they need to keep them physically safe. They need to keep them emotionally safe. They need to provide love, compassion, nurturance. And 5, they need to make sure they teach their children ethical and moral standards so they can grow up to be upstanding individuals. And of those 5 basic things that a parent provides, that your parents provide, could you tell me which ones your parents provided for you?
A roof over my head, food on the table, not too much nurturing or compassion.
Children who come from parents who are substance abusers or alcoholics of any kind, you know, uses any drugs of any kind, those children are more at risk. And I want to say they're more at risk not because substance abuse causes this kind of behavior, but there is a strong correlation to substance use and abuse. So was this going on in your home?
Yes, both parents.
Both parents. So could you give us, you know, just one of those common days when you were, you know, very small? What would normally be going on in your home?
My father would be high on the couch, and my mother, she tried to be a good mother. She did try.
Was she also high?
I think so. Not as bad as my father. I think she tried to be clean.
So at what age are we talking about? What age?
Between, like, I lived with them together up until I was about 5, 6 years old. and then they got divorced.
Okay, and did you then go to live with your mother?
Yes. My mother left my father the day he almost killed my brother.
How old was your brother?
He was 3.
What did he do to your brother that may have caused...
He was chasing him with the belt, and he ended up, my brother was running, and he grabbed him and he threw him on the bed, and my brother bounced off his bed and hit the wall, almost hitting his head on the wall, and that's the day my mother left.
Okay. Did you live with your mother the whole time?
Up until I was 8 years old, I lived with my mother.
And then what happened?
Then CPS was called by, I guess, one of my teachers for neglect, and they were going to put us into foster care, and my mother's parents intervened and ended up taking custody of us, and I was raised by them from 8 on.
Did you ever have any other contact with your mother at that point, although you lived with your grandmother?
She'd be in and out of my life. At times she was clean. That was the only time my grandparents would allow her to be around us.
Okay. You know, child abuse affects a person in many, many ways. There are many different types of effects. And since individuals are individuals and they have different resiliencies and strengths, it affects people differently. As a child, how were you affected? What was going on with you, with school, with your social life as a child, like making friends? How did that work for you?
Well, when I lived with my mother, because she was getting high a lot, and she was sending me to school with dirty clothes, my hair not brushed, so I was made fun of a lot by the other children in school. It was hard.
Yeah, that must have been very painful.
Yeah.
Were you able to make friends at all?
Not really.
So you went through most of your childhood not having one friend, a play date?
Not until I moved in with my grandparents.
Okay. And then did you have more of a social life?
One of my neighbors, because I went to, when we moved, they kept us in the same elementary school that we were in with my mother, so I didn't live in the same town that I went to school in, so I didn't live near children I went to school with, so I did have a neighbor that I was very friendly with her, that we grew up together.
That is very hard.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had a very difficult time.
Yeah.
I want to read something to you that I found. I found this, and I thought it was very interesting. You never know what you're going to find on the internet. It's full of information for you. I found this saying, and I thought it was very insightful. When a child hits a child, we call it aggression. When a child hits an adult, we call it hostility. When an adult hits an adult, we call it assault. When an adult hits a child, we call it discipline. Now, I just want to add a little something here. Abuse goes across all socioeconomic statuses, all lines of culture, education, religion. There are no biases at all. There is abuse everywhere. Children are being hurt. People are not hearing them. Children are afraid to say anything. And it's very difficult. Did you ever express what you were going through to a guidance counselor, a teacher?
No, I was so young, but I know that my grandparents, when my parents were still together, there were a few times they wanted to take us from the situation, but my parents wouldn't allow that. They did notice, I was so young, I remember now that it was wrong, but at the time, I guess I didn't realize, that's just what I thought was normal.
So let's move forward in time a little bit. As an adult, how did this affect you?
I suffered from severe anxiety.
And how did that hold you back, or be able to work?
I'm able to work, but it was hard for me when I was in my early 20s. I was enrolled in college and I had to drop out because I had such severe anxiety that I couldn't even go to class. And I ended up being agoraphobic for about a year and not being able to leave the house.
For those of you who do not know what agoraphobia is, it's when someone has difficulty leaving their home. They isolate themselves due to fears, and they may not even know what those fears are, but they're afraid to leave the house. And so you had this for 1 year.
Yes.
How did you get past that?
My grandmother. She got me out and she said, you need to live in the world, and she pushed me to get a job. And as I got a job, I actually hooked up with my boss, who is a doctor, and he got me on very good medication, and I ended up, the anxiety stabilized.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's good that you were able to go to work. Many people with anxiety or panic disorder that begin to have very difficult time going to work and managing their lives. Let's come back to that in a moment. We'll be back in a moment.
Hi, this is Mickey B, the Prince of Rock and Roll. Join me for my Rockin' Solid Gold Holiday Dance Party, Saturday, December 1st, 8 p.m. at the Belmore Columbus Club, 2333 Belmore Avenue in Belmore, with the rockin' sounds of the 50s through the 80s, starring the Accords, the Fabuleers, 3rd Edition, and DJ Ace playing all your rocking hits. Party with Santa, full hot buffet, coffee, dessert, cash bar. Reservations required. Call 516-822-9612, 516-822-9612, or MickeyB.com. Sponsored by.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hogshair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
B&M Performance Cycles, 439 South Main Street, Messina, New York. We handle all parts, accessories, and do all repairs. We can custom build your bike for show or hot rod. We also do New York State inspections on all motorcycles. B&M Performance Cycles. Come see us today.
Welcome back to MadhouseTV.com. This is Voices, and I'm Alice Agostini. I'm a therapist that specializes in abuse of all kinds, including sexual trauma. And my guest today is Teresa, who is so courageous in coming in and talking about her childhood and some of the things that she went through as a child and then afterwards as an adult and her experience. If you'd like to call and speak about your experience in having lived through child abuse and anything you've gone through now, or if you're looking for services and help, I have many numbers that I can refer you to. Of course, I do this work at the Triskill Wellness Center, and my number is 631-210-4606. Welcome back, Teresa. Let's talk a little bit more about your childhood. You know, I know you had parents that were using drugs. Did you see them using the drugs? Do you remember that at all?
I remember seeing my mother smoking pot.
Okay. Well, you know, there are a lot of people that smoke pot, and some believe it should be legalized. They wouldn't consider that like really a drug. Was she able to function and take care of you and meet your needs?
No, there were times that she wouldn't be there at the bus stop when she was supposed to be to pick me up after school, and I'd have to go with one of the girls. Her mother would take me home with them, and I'd stay there, and they'd give me dinner and stuff like that, and eventually my mother would come and get me.
Were you worried? Were you worried, that something happened to Mom, or did that frighten you?
I don't think, no, I wasn't worried because it happened pretty much every day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a matter of the normal sequence of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see your parents buy drugs?
Yeah, I remember taking rides into the city at nighttime, and I guess that's where they would go to pick up their drugs. They'd take us in, we'd be, they promised us pizza when we got home.
Oh. So were you okay with going then because you're going to get pizza? You thought,
Yeah, but now that I'm older, I know what it was about. Then I didn't really know. I just knew that they would drag us out at nighttime and drive into the city.
That must be so difficult. Children don't realize sometimes what's going on. So they kind of manipulated you into accepting what was going on. How late was late? Are we talking about the middle of the night?
Yeah, probably like 10, 11 o'clock.
Pretty late.
And we'd stay in the car with my mother, and my dad would run in and run out, and then we'd leave.
Okay. Well, afterwards, having all of the problems that you had, and then later on anxiety, and being on medication, did you ever mutilate yourself, or attempt suicide, or think of attempting suicide?
I never mutilated myself, but I did end up in the hospital for suicide. I didn't attempt, but I had suicidal thoughts.
Okay. And how long were you there?
Well, I was 13, and I was in the hospital for about probably three months, 90 days.
I want to read a couple of the effects of child abuse to you, Teresa. And, give me an idea of where you were at. Each child is different, and so I'm just going to read a few of them to you. Academic difficulties, aggressive behavior, alcohol and substance abuse, anxiety, attention problems at school, bad dreams, bedwetting, behavior problems, chronic pain, compulsive sexual behaviors, concentration problems, and the list goes on and on. Dangerous behavior, like inflicting self-mutilation, or sometimes maybe driving fast, those joy rides where you do things that are pretty dangerous and you could get hurt, but that's not specifically your intention in your mind. Failure to thrive, fear, or shyness. Any of those things?
Academic trouble, the anxiety, attention problems in school, concentration problems, shyness. What else did you say?
Oh. Malnutrition, were you malnourished?
No.
Okay. Did you lie? Were you oppositional?
I did lie. I would make up stories to make my life better than it was to other kids.
Oh, what did you tell other kids?
Well, this was more in high school. I'd make up stories about things.
Could you give us a for instance?
I just would make up things like that I had a boyfriend that didn't go to school with us but was older, and I just made up like fantasy things, like stupid things, just to make me look better.
Okay. I guess children always want to look good to other children. Mm-hmm. It's really important for children to look special and like life is normal. according to the way they think life is normal. And so you created that for yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. So here's the thing. When a child is behaving like this and they go to school, guidance counselors, school psychologists, social workers, all of a sudden we have a problem child. And since so many children don't always talk about what has happened to them, such like as in your instance as well, they don't say, well, I get beaten. I had a child when I was working in a school once that was getting beaten and she never said. And finally we noticed some of her behavior was really changing drastically. And she finally did report that she was being beaten. And what she showed us was marks that were from a hanger. So they were puncture marks all over the body where we wouldn't see. We wouldn't see this. It was along the torso, her back. And so she was being hit with a hanger, and the point of the hanger left these little piercings all over. And it was just horrible, horrible. Did anything like that happen to you, Teresa, at all?
No, that sounds worse than my story, honestly.
So you weren't specifically physically harmed, except that?
No, I was. My father would beat us with the belt.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
You were?
he would beat us with the belts when, if we made noise or, did anything to disrupt his life. Us just being regular little kids, he didn't like that.
So what would he consider disrupting his life? What would be disrupting his life?
I remember when I was 6 years old doing homework with my mother, and I went to Catholic school, and in Catholic school you're not allowed to erase in your notebooks. And I was doing homework with her, and she was erasing, and I started crying, and my father was like, shut her up, and he, because I wouldn't stop because I was afraid of getting in trouble at school, he came after me. I remember him chasing me into my room with the belt. And he wouldn't care where he hit you or, and it was always the buckle part.
I was about to ask you that. I was about to ask you, did you get hit with the buckle?
Yeah, it was the buckle.
That's phenomenal. That's amazing. Why a grown person, a large person, would chase a smaller person, a child, with the buckle of a belt. You have to wonder, what did we really want to do here? Was this discipline? Is this supposed to be discipline? What are we teaching the child? What are we teaching the child when we chase them with a belt? What are we teaching the child when we spank them, smack them, punch them, kick them? Because there are children receiving this kind of abuse. What are we really teaching the child? And if you look at research, what we're having is children that are being bullies in school. They're bullying other children because they have anger. They have anger and they're projecting it out. They also don't have the tools. They don't have the tools on how to react when they're upset. What are they learning? They're learning when I'm angry, then I'm aggressive, because that's what you do. That is what you do. Did you have any of that at all, Teresa? Did you get aggressive at all?
With my grandmother, I was, I guess, difficult to handle by the time, when we moved in with her because, I'd fight back with her a lot. So not really, I didn't get aggressive though, physically. No, I just would, fight with her. If she said the sky was blue, I'd say, no, it's purple.
Okay.
Yeah, it was more like that.
So you became oppositional as you got a little older and you were living with your grandmother. You were opposing what she would say.
Well, I came from a house where I pretty much had control. I was watching over my brother. I took the mother role of my brother, and I had to take care of myself. And now I'm living with this woman who's trying to be a parent and tell me what to do, and take care of my brother and not allow me to. And it kind of, annoyed me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who's going to tell you how to parent your child when you've been parenting him all this time?
And
keeping him safe.
Yeah.
And yourself. Who's going to want to parent at that point?
Yeah.
I can understand that. If you're listening to this and you'd like to call and ask Teresa any questions, or myself, or if you need any information, you can call us here at Madhouse TV. .com, 669-7999. Let's go a little forward in time. One of the other things that happens to a child that's been abused, they could become the bully, but they could go the other way. They could become subservient. They could become meek. They become the target sometimes of the bully. So since you weren't the bully and you weren't the one being aggressive, did you become the target?
Yes.
To whom?
One of the girls in school.
What would they do, darling?
They would do things like pretend to be my friends and make me do things to be friends with them, and then I'd do it and they'd make fun of me. They wouldn't include me in things. They were mean.
Did you ever hear that term, secret bully? It's interesting that, and you see this a lot more with girls than with boys, where they befriend a child and making friends with them at the same time, they would tease them, put them down, hurt their feelings, and then when the child would get upset, they would go, "Oh, you're such a baby. You know, you're overreacting. We're just playing with you." But it's a consistent behavior. And since the child that is being bullied wants to have friends, they kind of accept it. You know, they keep going along with it because now they start thinking, well, maybe I am being a baby. Maybe I am overreacting, you know, and I don't want to be a baby in front of all these people. You know, so we get some of that out there, and it's scary because the child is very confused. They're very confused, you know, this is my friend, you know, why are they hurting me like this, or am I overreacting?
Well, I knew that they weren't my friends. They were just, I just wanted to be accepted and liked.
Mm-hmm. Of course, of course.
Now as an adult, if I saw any of them, I would love to just tell them what I think of them.
So, so did this also happen as in your adult years, as you're growing up and everything? How about relationships?
With men, I always become the caretaker, kind of. I give myself, I become a chameleon, kind of. This is how I was. I'm not like that now, but, and mold to what they wanted me to be. Yeah, to be accepted and liked.
Mm-hmm. And so, how many relationships did you have like that? Did you have a few of them like that?
Yeah, I had 3 like major relationships like that. Long-term relationships.
Would you do that today?
No.
No. So who you are is who you are.
Yeah. And I'm choosing a different type of man too, I guess.
Why don't we take a break right now, and we'll be back in a little bit at madhouse.com TV.
This is Angelo from Casper Paranormal. Today we're sitting in with Chris doing a reading. Let's see what's going on.
Okay, I've never had a reading like this before, so just bear with me. I'm seeing bugs.
Bugs? I thought you were a psychic medium.
I know, that's what's confusing. Hold on. Do you want the good news or the bad news?
I'll take the bad news.
I think these are spirit bugs.
Spirit bugs? I've never heard of spirit bugs.
That's just it. Do you want the good news?
Yes.
I know Joe from Bug Busters of Long Island. He'll take care of your problem.
That's great.
Hi, I'm Vinny, owner of VMD Electric. Family owned and operated since 1996, serving all in Nassau and Suffolk County. You can call us anytime, night or day, at 631-669-6915 for all your residential and commercial needs. Here are some photos of our current projects.
Welcome back to MadhouseTV.com. This is Voices, Healing the Hurt, and I'm Alice Agostini, the host. And I have Teresa, a very courageous person who has been abused as a child. And she's telling her story, and a very interesting story, and it just moves me tremendously. And it's the story that, you know, so many children have had and have not had the opportunity to voice. You know, if there are any children out there listening to this show today, I do want to say there is help out there. And it's hard, and I know you're not speaking to anyone, so please do go to a guidance counselor, go to a social worker in the school, a psychologist, a teacher. Maybe you have a friend and you trust the parent. You need to say something to someone, and you need to protect yourself if you're not feeling safe.
Definitely.
Yeah. Did you ever speak to a guidance counselor?
No.
No. Most children don't. If you want to call in and ask any questions of myself or Teresa about her experience when she was a child and as an adult, the number here at MadhouseTV.com is 669-7999. So let's come back to you, darling. There are many forms of abuse, and I just want to hit upon 5 different forms that there are. There is physical abuse, and I think everybody thinks of physical abuse. And when they say abuse, they're thinking, well, abuse is physical abuse. And if you're not being physically abused, then it's not abuse, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also psychological, emotional abuse. There's verbal abuse. There's financial abuse. And there's sexual abuse. And sexual abuse of a child is just the most horrendous thing I can think of to cross those barriers with a child. Of the 5?
Physical, emotional. Yeah, pretty much those 2.
Were you ever verbally abused?
Yeah.
In what way?
I thought my grandmother was verbally abusive to me, but recently I've come to realize that she really wasn't. She ended up having Alzheimer's disease as I got older, and I now know that she was just looking at me as though she thought I was my mother.
So she was attacking you as though you were...
Yeah, for doing things I guess my mother did at my age when she lived at home. Because with Alzheimer's, they live
absolutely. So she was looking at you and seeing her daughter and all the things that she did and the drugs and, you know, losing her children to her and having her raise her children. You figure as you get older in this world that you're not going to have to raise somebody else's children. I mean, grandparents, we just want to play. I mean, I'm a grandparent, and I really just want to play with my grandchildren. I don't want to make any rules. I let my children do that. I did that already. So I just want to play. And that's, we're not thinking that we're going to have to raise our children's children one day. But let me say this. Child abuse is intergenerational. And what I mean by that is many children who have been abused, 30% of those children are going to go on to abuse their families. 65 to 75% of families where there is domestic violence taking place, the offender is not only abusing one of the parents, but is also abusing the children. And as that abuse escalates, it also escalates on the children. So it's very harmful. And a lot is lost. Self-esteem, would you agree?
Yeah.
Self-esteem is harmed greatly. We begin to not be sure of our decisions. We're not sure if we're good enough. Am I worthy? That's a big question. Can you sit there and say that? Am I worthy? Can you complete this thought? I am worthy of. I am worthy of. Just complete that thought. And that sounds easy, right? Is it easy?
Well, now, I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself, so yeah, I can say things now.
Okay. Yeah. Most people can't. I have had clients myself that if I say I am worthy of, complete that thought, and they look totally confused. Their eyes go all over and like, I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question. And that's harmful. I mean, how do you go on in your life, move forward in the world, if you're just not sure of what you're worthy of and who you are and how do you define yourself? And that had to be very difficult as you were growing up. How do I define myself?
Yeah, it was. That's why I got into relationships with men and just became whatever they wanted me to be because I didn't even know myself.
So, like you said this before, you were a chameleon, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to become what you want me to be.
Yeah, because I didn't know myself. I didn't love myself.
You love yourself now?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's important to love yourself. It's when you love yourself, all that love for yourself kind of goes out to everybody else. So you'll find love out there. If you're very courageous, anybody would be happy to have you, honey. But what's more important is that you do love yourself. You know, you have come past all this because you were in therapy, and you did have help, and you're looking at yourself differently now.
Mm-hmm. And I love that little girl. Yeah, I'm taking care of her now.
What do you do for that little girl?
I just, try to nurture her, take care of her, give her what she didn't get as a child.
That's beautiful. Did you have a lot of bad dreams as you were a child?
I did, but I remember being able to control my dreams, kind of, when I was younger.
Oh, yeah, people do that. Yeah, that lucid dreaming, and they take control of the dream. That's kind of cool. I've not been able to do that. I try to do that. It's cool. Very nice. Abuse hurts children in so many ways. They lose their self-confidence. They lose their courage. They're not sure of themselves. Some of them are very angry. They're not only angry at the person that beat them. Sometimes they're angry at the other parent. Did you ever have that with your mom?
Well, that's what I'm working on now, currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we're small babies, when we're born into this world, we come here with our innocence. We come into this world with pink, beautiful little things. And we come into this world, we have our intelligence, our IQ level, our ability to learn. We have our temperament. Some babies cry more than others. We have our reflex, our instincts. And during that time, we cry when we're hungry. And we cry when we're wet. We cry when we're uncomfortable. We cry if we hurt. And there's usually one person that comes, usually. And usually that's mother. Not 100% of the time. I'm seeing more and more dads are coming to those cries. But through history and through time, it's usually been mother. And the baby begins to learn. They're learning. They're learning, if I cry, that face comes. And they coo, and they sing, and they cuddle me, and they nurture me, and it feels good, and I like it. And so I'm going to cry some more and bring her over here, which kind of works. And then over time, the mother begins to even have the ability to tell, this is a pain cry, this is a hunger cry, this is just a cry because they want me to pick them up. They have, so this bonding has taken place where mother is able to differentiate the baby's cries. And now the baby looks at mother as my protector. Mother is my protector. Okay? This could be father. I'm seeing more and more fathers doing these now. Father, over time, is kind of looked at, they know he goes to work. Even when mother goes to work, they still kind of look at him as he goes to work. It's odd. And when there's abuse going on, and many times, 90% of the times, the abuse is male to female, father to mother. When this takes place, the child now, who are they going to trust if the protector didn't protect? Did you ever feel that?
Yeah, I do have a lot of trust issues.
Yeah. We'll take this call. Hello, this is Alice Agostini on Voices at MadhouseTV.com. Who am I speaking to, please?
Yeah, hi, this is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
I was just listening to her story, and I need to, is that young lady married, or does she have any children?
Teresa, would you like to answer that?
No, I don't.
No, she doesn't.
She's not married. Now, when her daddy was hitting her, what was going through her mind when somebody was coming at her like that? Because I grew up in a very similar situation.
I don't remember. I have memories of it. I don't remember what I was feeling at that time, though. I know I was scared.
Well, because sometimes I've spoken to people that, they want to lash out at their family or do things that were unthinkable. And, did you ever want to just go back at him and just do something that would, I don't want to say, hurt him or kill him or something like that, but did you ever get mad enough that was something that went into your head?
No. No, not right now.
And are they still alive today?
My father, yes, he is still alive today.
Do you have a relationship with him now?
No, I don't. I see him because he's actually a patient in the office I work in, and he does the fake niceness when I see him. But I gave him a chance to rekindle or to try to have a relationship, and he didn't respond to that. He didn't call me or, yeah.
Do you think that he knows what he's done?
Oh, yeah. I don't think he thinks he did anything wrong because that was the way he was raised. I think that that's just what he thinks disciplining a child is.
Well, he's got to know that he's probably hurt you deeply, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would hope so. But, he ended up remarrying and having 2 other children with his new wife and a new family, and his new wife didn't want him having anything to do with his old life, so that's kind of why I don't have a relationship with him now.
Well, it's kind of coincidental that he's going to the same facility that you work at.
Yeah, well, the office I work in is a pretty popular office for the area that we all live in, because him and I live only a town apart from each other, so, yeah.
Okay, well, good luck to you.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Those are very good questions.
Yeah.
Those are very good questions. If you'd like to call in and ask Teresa or myself any questions at MadhouseTV.com, the number here is 669-7999. And we're going to take a break. You can call us right after this break. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vinny, owner of VMD Electric. Family owned and operated since 1996, serving all in Nassau and Suffolk County. You can call us anytime, night or day, at 631-669-6915 for all your residential and commercial needs. Here are some photos of our current projects.
Suffolk County Gold Refinery for the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Visit their showroom for unbelievable prices on fine jewelry and engagement rings. 71 Millbar Boulevard, Farmingdale, 631-777-CASH. Suffolk County Gold Refinery for the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Visit their showroom for unbelievable prices on fine jewelry and engagement rings. 71 Millbar Boulevard, Farmingdale, 631-777-CASH. For the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Suffolk County Gold Refinery, 631-777-CASH.
What is Grand Prix Motorsports? It's a full-service motorsport performance and service shop. It's West Coast custom style, East Coast pricing, old-school customer service, custom-built bikes, all-out performance upgrades, and free towing too. Grand Prix Motorsports is automobile, motorcycle, jet ski, and ATV, performance, service, and repair. It's online at GrandPrixMS.com. Grand Prix Motorsports, Long Island Avenue, Deer Park.
Welcome back to MadhouseTV.com. I'm Alice Agostini. I'm the host of Voices Healing the Herd. And I have a wonderful guest today, Teresa, who has been courageous enough to come forward and talk about her childhood and how it affected her life as a child and also as an adult. And we just had a caller. It was really good questions. I really thought these were great questions. You were telling the caller that your father actually goes to the office where you work sometimes. Mm-hmm. Has he ever, shown that he wants you in his life again? Has he ever, spoken to you in that way, that he'd like to see you again? Or?
Yes, and I gave him my phone number, and he said, oh, I missed, I wonder how you and your brother are doing. And I said, well, here's my number, give me a call. And he never called. He ended up calling 3 months later, and I didn't return his call because that's out of my life.
What do you feel toward your father now?
I'm angry at him, but I also pity him. I think he's a very weak person. I don't think he's strong at all. I think he's very weak. That's how I see him. When I see him, when I did have the conversation with him and talked to him and gave him my number, I saw him as just weak. He's just a weak person.
It's interesting that you pity him and you're angry.
Oh, I don't pity him. I just think of him as weak. I don't pity him at all. No,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the anger, how does that come out sometimes? Does that come out in certain ways for you, or do you internalize that and become ill?
Yeah, I internalize it, and I think that's where some of my anxiety stems from also.
You said at one point you were feeling agoraphobic. How are you now at traveling outside your home?
I've gotten better, but it's still hard for me to go places by myself. I'm okay if I'm with someone, like a friend or someone that I trust, but by myself, like my brother lives in another state, and I can't even get to, go to the airport and go there by myself.
A lot of people are afraid of flying.
Yeah.
It's kind of comic thing to be phobic about. People become afraid of flying. I know my mom doesn't want to get on an airplane, although she will fly, but she keeps saying she doesn't like it. I love to fly. Okay, that's over time.
Yeah.
You have been healing yourself so much. You've done so much work on yourself. I mean, even to just come out and speak up and speak out. And this is so helpful for so many people that are out there, who have never spoken about what has happened to them, who has never even thought that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I get clients today that I'll ask them, how was your childhood? And they'll go, it was okay. And my next favorite question is, what was okay about it? And it takes a couple of sessions before they'll say, well, I used to get hit. And then I'll go a little further and say, well, how did you get hit? I mean, did you get hit with an object? Did you get hit with a hand? And over several sessions after that is when they'll really begin to share. What will get me every time is they didn't find it that unusual. And for some, well, they would say things like, well, my neighbor was getting it pretty bad too. The kid next door. I just thought this was the norm, because I wasn't the only one getting it. I know my friend was getting it, and my other friend was getting it, and we're all getting it, so it must be the way it is. And that says something about our society. When so many children are being abused nowadays, and so many children are being killed, and so many children are hurt. There are things that we say, and I don't know that everybody realizes some of the things that children hear. But to say, couple, spare the rod, spoil the child. What does that mean? Spare the rod, spoil the child. We're talking about an object here. You are to be seen and not heard. How can what would a child feel? Did you ever hear that comment? Did they ever say that to you?
Yeah.
You are to be seen and not heard. So when does a child finally realize they can speak their mind or say something, that they have something important to say? And another one that I've heard also, and I remember I actually saw this in a Taras Bulba movie, Tony Curtis, Yul Brynner. Love them both. However, there is a scene where Yul Brynner looks at Tony Curtis and he says to him, I gave you life and I can take it away. And I have to tell you that I haven't had clients that were told this. They were told, yes, my parents said, I gave you life, I could take your life. What are we thinking of? What is society thinking of? What does our culture come to when we look at our children like chattel, like property? When we look at our children as though they have no rights. Now, I want to talk about something. And I don't know if you know this case. I want to talk about this very specific case. The first reported case of child abuse that came to light in the justice system was Mary Ellen McCormick, I believe, 1874. This is a very famous case because this is the first case that actually went to court and they took this child away from their family. In 1874, let's think about that for a moment. We are talking about a time when children were seen as possessions of their parents. And although New York State did have some laws against child abuse, they were not carried out. And people would also turn away. If you think about it, people who have seen the child being abused would say, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be involved. That's child belongs to that parent. That was a time when people would look at it like that. And even if a police officer came in, they would still be looking at, this is the child. This child is possession of this parent. Parent has a right to, parent the way they parent. But Mary Ellen, she began life with her mother and her father. Her father died. Her mother was very poor, struggling hard to take care of her, trying to go to work, working a lot of hours to take care of her, couldn't do it. So as a very small baby, she was placed in the system. And being placed in the system, someone came along and said they were her father, except her father had died, and adopted her. These people were very abusive. Very abusive. And this child grew 10 years of her life with this family. Neighbors complained that they heard her crying. Neighbors complained that they felt something was going on with this child. And no one did anything about it. Police were called. Nothing was done about it. This one caseworker who would go into the home to help people, and in that time period, it was like a charity. It was the social workers, the initial social workers out there helping families, heard from a neighbor that this was going on, and she decided to check it out for herself. And under a different pretense, knocked on the door. And what she found was a very emaciated child that was dirty. her clothing in tatters. She was black and blue, her arms, her legs. The woman reported no one took the child out of the home. And she finally went to this man, and he was the president of the New York ASPCA. And he was the president. And she said, this is what's going on in that home. And he went in to see for himself. And he went to court, and he got papers, so the child was removed from the house and brought to a judge. And the judge asked the child, you know, what was going on there? And the child said, this is the first time I've ever been out in the street. The child was 10 years old. It's the first time I've ever been out in the street, seeing people. This is the first time I've been beaten. I don't get food. And when the judge asked her, do you want to go back home with your parents? She said, no, I don't want to go back home there. The parents were brought to court. They were arrested. And the mother, who did most of the physical abuse, the mother was the physical abuser, only spent 1 year in jail for the abuse of Mary Ellen. And it took the president of the New York ASPCA to bring that to light. He did not do that as the president of the ASPCA, but he did get everything going. Isn't that story just horrendous?
Yeah.
But that is our first reported case, and Mary Ellen lived to 92 years old and was very, her family says she was a very peaceful, tranquil woman. So I thank you. Teresa, I thank you so much for coming. I thank you for sharing your story, being so courageous. I'm sure some of these questions were difficult for you. You made it look so easy. Thank you for coming. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just if you're a child out there and you're being abused, say something, because people will, there is help out there, and they will protect you.
Thank you. We're wrapping up here. This is MadhouseTV.com. I'm Alice Agostini, the host of Voices Healing the Hurt. We're here every week. I want you to think for a moment for next week. When a child has been abused or a person's been abused and they're at wit's end and they're feeling hopeless, where do they call? Some of the numbers that I have here today are some of the numbers you can call. I am a therapist that works with abuse victims. I am the president of the Triskele Wellness Center, and my phone number is 631-210-4606. And you can call me at any time to ask any questions. If you are watching this, I do give 15-minute free consultations if you'd like to ask some questions. Some of the other numbers that are very important for you to know, especially here on Long Island, is the Suffolk County Coalition Against Domestic Violence hotline, which is 631-666-8833. Response, which also has a 24-hour hotline, is 631-751-7500. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope to see you next week as well. Good night.